Thank you, thank you. So yeah, like you said, my name's Todd Wacker, and thank you all just for being here. I'm excited to be here. I'm actually from Austin, Texas, and this is my first time to Salt Lake City. Enjoying it so far. Got to try some of your fry sauce, which is really good. We need to get that in Texas. But anyway, and so I work as a developer evangelist for Syncano, which is a serverless platform. And you can follow me on Twitter at Wacker the Hacker. Okay, so first question, I guess, how many people know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a serverless platform, by a show of hands? Okay, so we've got a few. For those that don't, that's okay. Actually, before I took this position, I didn't really know that much about it either, but that's what the talk is for here today. So we'll go ahead and get into that. But so serverless is a new kind of architecture that you can use for building your apps. And so this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the drawbacks of the traditional server architecture, what some of the benefits are for going serverless, and then mention some of the serverless providers that are out there so that you can build your next app serverless. So some of the drawbacks here. So if you've built an app before, you've seen this model, right? So you've got a client side, many different browsers or devices. You've got your grandma who's still using IE8 for some reason. And so then this client is going to connect with the server, and the server is going to handle a lot of different things, such as user authentication, managing your data. It's going to talk to a database. But typically in the traditional architecture, this server, you're setting it up yourself, or you're running it through a company. But you have to make sure that it's up, that it's scalable, all these kinds of things. And so there's just a lot of different things that you have to worry about in a traditional architecture. And so if you're a backend developer, writing the server-side code, gets kind of repetitive. There's a lot of things that are done kind of over and over again, right? So, like I mentioned before, user authentication. You have to write a login system for every app that you're doing. Data management. You need to have the different CRUD actions, and so a lot of times this ends up not being very dry. Because you're doing these same things kind of over and over, and of course you're integrating with different third-party APIs, and you have to figure out how that's going to work, within your application as well. And then you run into different maintenance hassles, with this model, right? So you have to have, if it's a small company, a lot of times you're doing DevOps yourself, or some other developers kind of doing that part-time. If you're a larger company, you have a dedicated DevOps team, but you have to manage these servers. If someone calls at 4 a.m. and your app went down, you or somebody on your team has to worry about that. And then you come across different scaling issues as well. When you're trying to scale this, you need to figure out, okay, where do I want my servers to be located at? How many do I need? Different things like that just aren't really that pertinent to building a great application. It kind of takes you away from that. And this, of course, leads to some different inefficiencies. So, that server, you or your company is paying for it to be up 24/7, regardless if there's a user on your website at 2 in the morning. You need to anticipate the scaling, like I mentioned before, and you just run into different problems, right? And so there's different things. What is it? There's 3 things that are eternal, right? Laundry, dishes, and server maintenance. And so serverless kind of takes that server maintenance piece out of the equation a little bit. So there has to be a better way, right? Don't be like this guy. And so there is, and so it's called serverless. And so essentially what you can do with a serverless architecture is you have different microservices that are hosted in the cloud that are run by a serverless provider, and a lot of these providers, are very large. They've already scaled themselves. Amazon and Google are two major players in this space, and so you don't have to worry about that quite as much. These microservices are run in the cloud, and so typically you'll have an API depending on the provider that you choose, but you'll have an API that you can hit from your front end, and your front end can be anything, any of the latest JavaScript frameworks, like React, Ember, things like that, and so your server code, it's only doing what you need it to do, and you're only paying for it when it's run. So typically, the payment for this is based on API calls or how many seconds you have a script running in the cloud, and so this custom code, since it's running in the cloud, it's away from your other resources. You're not having to manage that, and a lot of these serverless providers come with things that just work right out of the box. So user authentication can be as simple as, okay, I sign up and then I do user.login for my application, and I've logged in a user. Same with data management as well. I create a class of some kind, and class dot add new object or delete or update, or give me a list of objects. You're not having to code these things out yourself, and so that frees you up to do other things with your application. Since these functions are on demand, you can use them just whenever you need to. If I need to, okay, Twilio, go do this or that, I can do that as well. And so the benefits, like I mentioned before, low or no maintenance. So you get to kind of set this up and not have to worry about it so much. A lot of the serverless platforms are language agnostic, and so the code that you're running in the cloud is running in a container of some kind. And so it doesn't really matter if you prefer writing your backend code in Ruby or Python, or of course Node. That's going to run and fit in with your architecture because you're going to be able to hit that API. And so that because of that, it plays nice with your JavaScript framework of choice. You can run these functions in JavaScript. A lot of these providers have a JavaScript library of some kind. And of course, no more 4 a.m. phone calls. And you get to spend more time actually building the things that make your application unique. So instead of spending a bunch of time on that user login situation, you get to actually develop new features and work with that. So that's really cool and saves a lot of time. And so a few more benefits with that. So less hassle. So you've got more time to actually write code, which is the fun part. And so because of that, a lot of these applications will have a better UX, or they get to spend more time on the UX, working with users to kind of fine-tune that. And it takes a lot of different functions away from the front-end resources, so you can set these up to render templates server-side, or run any kind of complex business logic. You'll be able to do that, and it makes things just simpler. You can break down your application into different microservices for what you need to do. And so, like I mentioned before, the cost is based on how often your code is run, and not maintaining that 24/7 uptime just to have an application to hit. So the next part I want to talk about some of the serverless providers that are in this space. And so there's this is just a very, very short list of those, but so the 300-pound gorilla is AWS Lambda. Now, who here has actually built an app with Lambda? Anybody? Okay. So that's kind of the big player that is bringing this serverless trend more mainstream. You've also got Firebase, which is Google's version of this, which they just revamped, and so they're doing a lot of new things with their service. We used to have Parse. Facebook is kind of shutting that down, but you're seeing a lot of people who enjoyed Parse either spinning that off into other services or hosting Parse on their own servers, which is something you could do. My company, of course, Syncano, is doing this, and so we focus a little more on the automation potential of going this route. There's also Stamplay. There's a framework that's called Serverless, actually, that's built on AWS. Then you have Convey, which is like Parse for enterprise, backend, and like I said, there's many, many more. I mean, you can do a Google search for serverless providers, and there is an endless list. So I wanted to go in depth a little bit about a few of these. So one is AWS Lambda, like I mentioned, and so the benefits of going with them, they're backed by Amazon, so they're not going anywhere. They have functions that can be run in the cloud. They have DynamoDB, which is easy to use, and so typically how their service works, you set up some kind of custom endpoint that you can run this code through, and they have a variety of SDKs that you can use. But one of the things that people don't like about Lambda is that there's a bit of a learning curve to it. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do with Lambda, and there's a lot of customization. But because of that, sometimes it's a little difficult to get started, doing more simple things. The other big player is Firebase, like I mentioned, and they're backed by Google, and so they're really great with data management, and so they have that piece really figured out, and so they're one of the services where you can import their JavaScript library and set up a class and add the data that you need to there and retrieve it simply. They're getting more into cloud applications, and so building these microservices that you can host in the cloud. And they have user auth right out of the box. And there are a lot of different tutorials and guides out there to get started. They've also, on their website, they've got little like sample applications that you can install in. You can install a login system, import it directly into your app and do that as well. And then the last one I'll mention here is my own company, Syncano. And so we're a startup, so we're growing and working our way into this field. And so our differentiation is that you can build your app with a variety of different building blocks. So we have these different blocks, we call them sockets, but they're little pieces of functionality that you can add to your application. And so this can be something like creating a trigger so that when my data is updated, I run this script every time that happens. So a new user signs up, I send an email, or I check for something else, or I'm doing something there. We have schedule sockets as well, so you can run code periodically. So if I wanted to, check every day for something, or every 5 minutes, I can do that. And so we're working on making this thing more automated. And so you can automate the app building process. You can install one of these sockets and you've got a whole piece of an application that you can use. And so you do this actually from our dashboard. And so we have a dashboard that you go into. You create an app, you add different classes, different data objects, you add scripts, and everything that you do in this dashboard, it's going to stand up a custom API for you that you can hit from the front end of your choice. And so this is, just makes things a lot easier. And so you can get up and running, very quickly. And so things like user authentication are right there, easy data management right out of the box. We have different solutions for common third-party APIs, and we're adding more every day. And so, if you need to integrate with Twilio, you can install a solution, enter in your API key and do that. And we support a variety of different languages. JavaScript is one of our most popular, but we have Ruby and Python libraries as well. So if this is something that you may be interested for your next app, I encourage you to research the different platforms that are out there, and discover what you actually need. I know different ones have different features. Like we just recently added push notifications, which is big for mobile, of course, but not every platform has that. There's kind of a different feature set for each one. And so most platforms, while you're trying them out, have at least some free trial, so you can check it out while you're building your app. And some like Firebase even have like a free tier that you can use, for forever seamlessly. As long as you're under a certain amount of usage, and then once you get past that, then you go up into their paid tiers. And then many of these have short tutorials that you can go through and figure out. And don't be afraid to try serverless. A lot of the pieces are the same. They're just kind of in different places. And so that's why your next app should be serverless. Were there any questions? Yeah, right here. It kind of depends. The jury's still out on that. It really just kind of depends what you're doing. I think, I don't know, it's hard to say, I guess, when it would not, just like there's no silver bullet, like Brett mentioned before, it's, you can try it with any app. I think some of them are, some people use it as a prototyping tool, some of the smaller ones, but, AWS Lambda has production apps that are, using that, at least for portions of their application, that they don't want to set up a server for. Yes? Uh-huh. Yeah, I think when I was first learning about that, it's just it's a little different. So kind of knowing, and the different providers have different terminology for some of the same things, and so that part can be a little tricky. Definitely read the docs that are included with that, and then typically, they all set up different endpoints that you can hit directly, but then they also all have different libraries that you can use as well. And so some of the libraries are different. Learning the syntax for that. They're all pretty straightforward and easy to use, but there's just little differences here and there. Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. So yeah, a lot of services, and Syncano actually does this, but you can actually set up filters in place. So you can set up an endpoint that gives you a list of these data objects in alphabetical order, however you want that data presented. And so then you can hit that endpoint and get that information already filtered for you, rather than having to get a whole list and either filter it front end or write your own code to filter it server side. Yes. Yeah, a lot of them, I know we have caching, a lot of others as well you can do that with also. So I would check the docs on whichever one you decide to go with, but yes, that is possible. All right, well, thank you very much for having me, and thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you very much.